Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining us once more. We've spoken, of course, previously about him being a favourite, but we reflect that he's fallen way behind Donald Trump, I think in double digits in terms of the standing in the States.
Well, you have to know he hasn't actually come out and declared he's running for president, right? So he's not a candidate yet. Rumor is that he's waiting for the end of the Florida legislative session and in the next few weeks will announce. So it's also a very long way out from deciding the nominee of the party for president. Things can change. It should be noted that Trump is falling in the polls despite his bump after the indictment. So there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, and he has been described as Trump with a brain, which is an interesting assessment in itself. But Donald Trump then calling him Ron DeSanctimonious. I mean, it's all getting a bit unedifying, isn't it?
Oh, it's only the beginning, too. So we have a lot to look forward to. But it's, you know, the governor has stayed above it. He hasn't played into this name-calling game that Donald Trump likes to do. He's focusing on the accomplishments of Florida, which are many. And I think it's wonderful that he's traveling the world and promoting a state to have more economic growth. But what will stand out is how he led during COVID and how he kept the state open. He didn't have max or vaccine mandates. And the state is thriving right now. And we just got some pretty depressing GDP numbers for the U.S. this week. And yet Florida is kind of a beacon of hope. So I think the governor is just going to try to run on his accomplishments when he does announce.
However, on that very topic, I mean, there are these political analysts who have questioned his battle that he's taken on with Walt Disney in terms of Walt Disney World in Florida. And I know the critics have called it woke Disney because of the approach they've been taken. But, you know, there are those analysts saying you can't win a battle if you take on Mickey Mouse.
Well, I guess it's whatever Mickey Mouse is saying these days, which might be quite different than 70 or 80 years ago. But, you know, he definitely wants to show to the American parent, the mom and dad out there, that he is out there to defend children and to keep them children and not expose them to the sexual content that is in the schools these days. And he's definitely making himself a culture warrior, which is really important and a voting issue.
Just to sort of flip it to the other side then, what will either man make of Joe Biden having declared, of course, he is in the running, and whether, in fact, Biden is sort of starting to get back in the polls after that visit to Ireland?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long way out. The polls really don't mean very much at this stage of the game. But, you know, he made a lot of gaffes in Northern Ireland. He's not himself. His campaign video is pretty pathetic for someone who's been in office for several years. He's not a man at the height of his game. And we need a new generational leadership. The Democrats are even very despondent about this run. Right. And they don't have anyone else.
And do you think that's the same for you with the Republicans, that perhaps not only because of his court difficulties, but again, Donald Trump is now of an older generation and perhaps people want to move on in politics?
Absolutely. The vast majority of Republicans I talk to want to move on. They respect Donald Trump. They think he has been unfairly hounded by the justice system, but it's time for a new candidate who has a great winning record. And the focus is on Ron DeSantis.